please welcome to the stage Jackie Leavenworth.
Good morning, Ontario. How are you? How is everyone? Oh, good morning, good morning, good morning. So I would like to start not just with this title, Expression, Impression, Result, but before I actually get started in that, I would like to say a huge thank you. One to Tony. Was that great? Was awesome. What a fabulous message. And number two, Ontario Real Estate Association, let me tell you something. I have been doing what I do for 15 years. I have been averaging 45 cities a year for 13 years. And I will tell you that this association has raised the bar for everyone I ever worked for in the professionalism and the attention to detail to bring you an amazing program. So let's make it sound like 10,000 screaming fans are in here thanking this association for all they do for you. Man, it's been amazing. Now, we do not control the impressions we make on others. So this title, Expression, Impression, Result, we don't control the impression. That is up to someone else. We don't control results. That is a combination of our expression and their impression. I want you to picture something. I want you to picture when you as a child, or perhaps what you've done with your children or grandchildren, when we tried to make a finger or a hand impression or a foot impression in plaster or concrete. And the impression that came out had everything to do with the angle, with the weight, with the pressure, and finding the correct pressure points to make the impression exactly what we wanted it to be. And usually when we start things like that, we have to do it several times because maybe we didn't find the right pressure points to get it exactly where we wanted it. That is the same thing that happens with our communications with people. There are pressure points. There are exact ways of expressing ourselves that will create a different impression, that will create a result that we want. Well, if we don't control expression or impression and we don't control result, what do we control? Well, here's what we can do. We can be mindful, very, very mindful of our expressions, because while we can't control results, our expressions can absolutely impact the results that we have with people. And we're in a people business, are we not? We are in a business where we negotiate for everything. We negotiate for a name on the telephone when they call. We negotiate for a phone number from emails. We negotiate for everything we do. Our expression will absolutely not control, but impact the impression that is made on another person, which will take care of results. So, before we can ever even express ourselves to the point where people will listen to us, we need to get by two gatekeepers, if you will. So, people have what we call a cognitive mind map, We are trying to make an impression in someone's brain, a positive impression that will help us get to the results that is good for the client. We can't make that impression until we get through these two gatekeepers. The cognitive mind map starts out here. We're trying to get to the brain. There are two critical questions that everyone will ask themselves about you and me. The first two big questions are, number one, everyone is going to interact with you and me, and they are going to have the first question: do you respect me? I'm a human being. Do you respect me? Well, we've got to pass the test. Before we can get to the next level, we have to pass the test. We have to show them we respect them. It's sort of what Tony was talking about. Do we know their story? Do we understand their story? Are we relevant to who they are? So we've got to show that. The second critical question to get further into the critical mind map, or the cognitive mind map, is going to be, I have a point of view. Do you care about that? Do you care what my point of view is? Once we have passed those two tests, and only after we pass those two tests, will people be open to listening to what we have to say. Will they be open to actually considering our point of view? So let's think about this. We have 2 ways to show that respect and care. The first way to show it, and Tony's video about the Evian, that was cute, eh? The babies and the people. What were they doing? They were mirroring and matching each other. So here's psychologically something that is proven and extremely sound. People like people who are like themselves. They are in their comfort zone when they have people who are like themselves. So one of the things that we want to do is maybe mirror and match to help people feel comfortable. They will also feel respected at that point. Now, everything I tell you today usually comes out of a school of hard knocks, a major school of hard knocks. And when I've learned something like that, it's like, oh man, I've got to help others not fall into the same trap. I'm going to take you back into the 1980s. Cleveland, Ohio is my home. And I have been in the real estate business for nearly 35 years now. So I'm going to take you back into the early 90s, and we had a senior manager in our real estate company. His name's Bill Rowe. Bill Rowe was a wonderful man in his 70s who taught me more about life, I think, than anybody at that point. It was amazing. This man taught me about business and life. And you need to understand who Bill Rowe was, though. When Bill Rowe spoke, he spoke methodically, softly. And Bill carefully thought about almost every word that came out of his mouth, because Bill never wanted to offend anyone. So he spoke more like this: please raise your hand if I'm driving you nuts. Yeah, there you go. So Bill walked in my office one day and he said, Jackie, we need to talk. I said, sure, Bill, what's up? He said, well, I want you to picture something, Jackie. I want you to visualize what would happen and what it would look like if a steamroller met a Twinkie. And I said, wow, that's not a very pretty picture. He said, well, that's how I feel sometimes when we talk. And I said, no. He said, yeah. I said, what would I be, the steamroller or the Twinkie? He looked at me and he said, you, my dear, would be, I said, the steamroller? He said, and there you have it. You just finished my sentence. He said, Jackie, do you know that sometimes when we talk, you actually do this? I said, I don't. He said, you do. Well, I went home that night and I cried. And I was so upset with me. And then I realized he just gave me one of the best gifts of my entire life. Pointing that out to me was amazing, because what I realized was that my outgoing, gregarious, dance on the table, loud, is not great for everyone. And it was literally a lack of respect to not allow him to feel comfortable in my presence. And I learned to mirror and match. By that, I don't mean if he scratched his head, I scratched my head. I mean, we're not monkeys in a zoo. But I do mean that when I'm speaking to someone who is more soft-spoken, a slower pace, lower volume, I try to match that in some way. I have found that it enhances that trust and respect level by 1,000 times. It's great. Now, the second way to get past that cognitive mind map barrier that we have is respectful listening. Respectful listening starts with questions, and here you go. Tony's talking about their story. How do we know their story if we don't ask them questions? We ask them questions, and we give them a very effective and careful, intentional, respectful listening. Now, we're not great at that. We are not great at that. If you think about it, if you were to gauge people on a scale of 1 to 5, the average realtor, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the best listener in the world and 1 being an absolutely horrible listener, go ahead and raise your hands up in the air and rate them. Get those hands up. Let's see. Are they a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Let's see them. Let's see them. What do you think? What do you think? I see 2s. I see some 1s. Oh man, it's hard for me to see too far out, but I'm not seeing any 5s out there. Now, there are many reasons we're not effective listeners, but let's think about this for a minute. Number one, there's a difference in hearing and listening. Hearing is absolutely nothing more than a sensory gift that we have been given. Now, I do not have an interpreter up here doing sign language, so I'm assuming everyone in this room has been given the gift of being able to hear. That means sound can come into your ears. That's all it means. Listening is an intentional act. It is an intentional and conscious ability or want to take the sound that comes into your ears and actually process it where it's meaningful and you're literally hearing what the other person says and understanding. It's listening for understanding. It's awesome. The best listener I know in my entire world is my niece. Shannon is 40 years old, lives in San Diego. Shannon was born profoundly deaf and has never heard the English language, ever. She's the best listener I know because she really works to understand what you're saying to her. We aren't like that. One of the number one reasons that we are not like that is that we have internal chatter going on while people are talking to us. I call it my parrot. So I have parrots in my head. First time I really realized how many parrots I had in my head, I was driving down the street, going home from work, and there was a for sale by owner sign in the yard. I saw the for sale by owner sign, and I immediately began talking to myself. It sounded something like this. Oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me. Why would they put the house on the market themselves? This is my geographic farm. I sell 80% of the homes in here. I sold their neighbor's home in 4 days, and I met these people at a block party this summer. Really? What? Well, that was interrupted by another voice that popped in my head. The other voice was a trainer from the 1980s. His name was Steve Stewart. He had a class called Buy Now or Get Out of My Car. I took it 4 times. Buy or get out of my car. And so Steve's voice popped in my head. He said, would you just stop whining and complaining? Go up there to the front door. You know 50% of those people will list the house with a person who knocks on the door the first day they put the sign in the yard. Go talk to the people. Well, the next voice that popped in my head was my mother. She said, don't you dare. That's rude and obnoxious. If they wanted you, they'd call you. And the next voice that interrupted that was my dad. And he said, don't you listen to your mother. You go right up to that door, knock on that door. Those people are going to love you. Everybody loves you, loves you, loves you. Next voice that popped in my head was mine. 2 blocks away in my own driveway. And there was a little voice that went something like this. Too late now. Honestly, somebody just give me some sign that this stuff happens to you and I'm not alone. Please, give me some sign. Yeah, right? Well, that made me very aware of the fact that I had inner voices. So I started becoming sort of a student of that. And here's what I recognized. When people are talking to me, when people are talking to you, this is a very human thing. So it happens to all of us. We talk to ourselves in our head. Now, that voice in our head might be judging what they said. I mean, I can tell you that I was with a seller that told me what he thought he should get out of his house, and I immediately had an inner chatter that was something like this. Geez, here we go again. So sometimes we're judging it. Sometimes we're planning dinner. Sometimes we're wondering who's picking the kids up from soccer. Sometimes, who knows what's going on in our mind? But listen, here's the fact. If we're talking to ourselves in our mind when someone else is talking to us, our auditory system is much closer to our own inner voice, our parrot, than it is to the person talking to us. And therefore, we become an ineffective listener. We cannot know their story without being a great listener. I'm going to give 5 steps, okay? These are going to run fast. Because unfortunately, when we were in school, no one gave us a class on how to listen to people. We got classes on how to do oral reports. I took speech class 4 years in a row. I'd love for my speech teacher to see what I do for a living, right? So we learned all of that. We learned to dissect frogs and dissect sentences, you name it, but they didn't give us classes on listening. Going to give you a quick one. Number 1, become aware of the fact that you are talking to yourself while someone else is trying to talk to you. We are human. It is going to happen. You will not escape it. What you can do is become extremely aware that it is happening. So be aware that it is happening. Now, while you're doing that, I would suggest that you actually name that inner voice. I've done that. Mine's named Chatty. You can take my name or you can name it something else if you want, but be able to relate to that inner voice. So you want to be aware that it's happening. Number 2, we want to quiet that voice, quiet that parrot, if you will. And be kind to that parrot, because you know what? It's our subconscious. Oh my goodness. That's the voice that tells us it's hot, don't touch it. Or the car's coming too fast, don't turn. So be kind to it. I went to Texas, I said, how do you stop a bird in your house from talking when you're trying to rest? And in unison, they all yelled, shoot it. I thought, sorry, forgot it was in Texas. Okay, no, don't shoot it. So what I do is when I realize it's happening, and it happens a lot, I say, not now, Chatty, which is why I needed a name. Not now, Chatty. And for the record, folks, I do not say that out loud. Okay, just make sure you know that. All right, so that's step number 2. Step number 3, establish eye contact with the person who's talking to you. This is all happening very quickly. Establish eye contact. It's difficult to not listen to someone if you are looking in their eyes. So establish eye contact. Number 4, and I want you to practice this as soon as I start telling you. I want you to make your parrot a repeater of my words. So here's what's going to happen. In your head, not out loud, in your head, I want you to start repeating in your head everything I'm saying. You can follow me word for word, or you can wait till I pause, and then you can fill in the phrase I just said. But in any case, however you decide to do it, what you are doing is keeping your inner voice, or your parrot, or your chatty, or whatever you name it, you are keeping that busy with my message, and it cannot take a mental field trip. And I'm telling you, if that doesn't make you a lot more money in real estate, it'll save a marriage. So go for it. Learn it, and learn it well. And step number 5 is that what you want to do is take that story that you've been repeating in your head, find a moment to pause the people, and let your parrot be a repeater back to them. Let your parrot tell their story. So if I heard you correctly, Tim, here's what you said, and you give it back to them. They will correct you if you're wrong. They will know you were effectively listening to them. And sometimes they even correct themselves and say, well, I did say that, but you know what? This is what it is. And I'll tell you, if you practice those 5 steps, you will be a much more effective listener. And I am sad and sorry that even in today's world, they're still not teaching that to kids in school. That is an important lesson. That's how you learn their story that Tony talked about. All right. So now, if we've shown respect and care, they're feeling comfortable, they're trusting us. Now and only now will they ever listen to our point of view. When we start to share our point of view, we need to be mindful of 3 types of expressions that we have out there. Words. Number 1, words do matter. They do. The words we choose to use. And I'm going to give you a great example. There are a lot of words. And I see Ray and Amy are over here, and I got to spend some time with Ray and Amy and Laura and Val and Barbara and Steve last night a little bit, which was great. And they were talking about some of the words that I've shared in classes in the past that made a difference. I'm going to share one thought with you. And when I do that, I need for all of you to get out of your realtor mindset, okay? I want you to be a real estate seller for a moment, a real estate seller. In fact, can you repeat that after me on the count of 3? Just say real loud, I'm not a realtor, I'm a seller. 1, 2, 3. Good. Now, I'd like for all of you to get your hand up in the air with your thumb, and you'll have a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So hands up. The thumbs up literally will mean I like this phrase. I'm a seller and I like it. Thumbs down will mean I'm a seller and I don't like it. Are you ready? I'm going to give you the phrase. Here's the phrase. Show me whether you like it or don't like it. The phrase is real estate commission. Show me your thumbs. Oh, wow. Look around the room. Look around you. Now, I see very few thumbs up if you're a seller. If you're a realtor, you're going, yeah, baby. But if you're a seller, now the question is, if we know sellers don't like the phrase, why do we use those words? Words matter when we're trying to make an impression, don't they? So for years, since the mid-90s, I have not ever referred to my fee as a real estate commission. It is a success fee. In other words, if you said to me, what do you charge to list my home? I would say I charge nothing to list your home. And thanks for asking, Ray. And then I'll hear the voice going, right. Of course you don't. No, really. Do you have a moment for me to explain the way I work? Sure. All right, here's how I work. I am going to meet with you and I'm going to see your house. I am going to take my time to understand you, understand your goals, understand any concerns you have. I'm going to take my time to get to know your home and the marketable features of your home. I am going to share with you how the market is behaving and how it will impact you. I am going to use my expertise, my knowledge, my energy, my experience, and I'm going to spend my money to get your home sold, and I literally do not charge you a dime for that. For months of work, I don't charge a dime. Now, when I am successful selling your home on your terms, I will charge a success fee. If for some reason I'm not successful selling your home on your terms, I will not charge you for my time, experience, knowledge, expertise, or charge you back for all the hard costs that I have incurred to market your home in this market. I will charge a success fee when I'm successful. Is that what most of us do? We charge a success fee. I'm like, I am not the attorney that charges you $350 or $400 an hour, whether I win the case or lose it. I'm the person who takes the case, and I only charge you when I win. That's kind of where I go. So is there a difference in the words I choose to use? Yeah, there are. So words are one. Number two, tonality. Tonality. So just take a look at the people at your table, and I want you to finish this sentence. It's not what you said, it's, go ahead. See, you all know that. Please don't raise your hand or stand up. But I'm going to ask you to think inside of your head, how many of us would be married to the same person we married originally if it weren't for the term, it's not what you said, it's how you said it, right? That is huge. The tonality in my voice is huge. The third is body language or gestures. Body language or gestures. They're huge. So we're gonna go through this a little bit. So expressions in today's world, and please just yell them out loudly so I can hear you. This is a big room of people. What are the most common communication methods that we are using today with buyers, sellers, and other agents? Okay, text, email, and probably some of you are saying even instant messaging, whether that's Facebook or whatever. So text, email, and instant messaging. There you go. And how does that work for us? How does that work for us? Well, you know, let's talk about some things here. I'm going to share an experience with you that happened to me. Again, another school of hard knocks. I was going on a job, my husband's driving, and I'm cleaning up some emails. Now, I have an agent who follows leads for me, and she is phenomenal. She is absolutely phenomenal at what she does. And she literally every week will get with me and say, Jackie, I followed up on this and here's where it stands. I followed up on this and here's where it's, she's phenomenal. I don't have to micromanage this woman. For whatever reason, and I don't know what it was, but you know, sometimes we just say things or do things and we wonder why we did them. This was one of those moments. For whatever reason, I was reviewing a bunch of stuff and I saw where I had this lead for over a month from a woman from Washington, D.C. Now, I had pushed that lead off to my agent to follow it up because I was on the road for a solid month, and I said, you know, follow it up, see what you can do with this woman. She had done a great job. I sent her an email, my agent, I sent her an email, and the email said this: you aren't still following up with the D.C. lady, are you? Now, let me give that to you with a punctuation. You're not still following up with a DC lady, comma, are you? Question mark. Intent. I know you have followed up with her, and she hasn't gotten back to us. So here's our MO. You follow up 3 times. If they don't get back to us, they go on a drip campaign, and we hope for the best. That's just the way we do it. Now, why I even ask her that question is beyond me, but I did. You aren't still following up with the DC lady, comma, are you? Question mark. Within 2 minutes, my phone rang. It was my agent. She was very defensive, and she was very upset. It sounded something like this: I can't believe you sent me that email. Oh my God, Do you have any idea how hard I work for you? Do you have any idea what I do? I mean, in fact, I send you emails, I send you updates. I just looked through my email for the entire chain of what's happened on the DC lady, and she said, I'm going to send you that. I said, whoa, back up the bus. What are you so upset about? She said, the email. I said, which email are you referring to? She said, the one about the DC lady. I said, what do you think it said? She said, I know what it said. I said, well, humor me, help me. What did it say? She said, it said, you aren't still following up with the DC lady, are you? Now, I want you all to think about that. Same punctuation. Listen, you aren't still following up with the DC lady, comma, are you? Question mark. Now, mine was, you aren't still following up with the DC lady, are you? I know you've done a great job. I hope she's on the drip campaign. Let's move on to greener pastures. But here's what happened. Here's what happened. Because it was an email, I had words, but I didn't have body language and I didn't have tonality included. Am I right? So what happened? She put her own in. She inserted her own body language. She inserted her own tonality. She took my words and gave them a very different meaning. Has that ever happened to any of you? You know, and it's dangerous. So while our technology is fabulous, while there is a time for email, there's a time for text, there's a time for instant messaging, there's also a lot being missed when we use those and use them all the time and don't recognize when we need to be paying attention, as Tony said, paying attention. That's what we need to do. I became a student of NLP. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, neuro-linguistic programming. It's basically the way that people, they process information. We process information auditorily, what we hear, visually, what we see, kinesthetically, what we feel emotionally or tangibly. That's how we process information. Well, in the 1970s, there was a wonderful book that was written called Silent Messages. And the gentleman, Abraham, and I always butcher his last name, it's Miram or something like that, but Abraham wrote this book, Silent Messages, and it was all about the power of the tone of your voice and the body language. And NLP has kind of picked up what he said. Tony Robbins will teach this stuff, etc. They've picked it up, and here's what we learned in that book and has been somewhat of an understood thing. 55% of my message today to you, you are processing based on my body language and gestures. 55, that's over half of our message is being processed by the other person. That impression we're making, body language is carrying over half the weight, okay? 38% of our message is being relayed to the other person, the impression we're making, based on the tonality of our voice. Not what we say, but how we say it. Now, if you do the math and subtract that from 100, I think you're going to come up with 7% is what is left for words that we choose to use. Now, what's in an email or a text? Words, right? And in a text, it's not even words. It's little, I mean, what does this mean? What does that mean? So 7%. Because of that, if you think about that, every time that we are communicating important stuff through the email and text, we're getting 7% of our message through, and we are allowing them to then interpret it and create their own impression with their own body language and their own tonality. So, is it efficient? Yes, it is. Is it effective? Not always. Not always. It is not always effective because of what we've just described. So now, all of the important people in the world realize this is a problem. They realized it some years ago. So they came up with an answer for our emails and texts. What answer did they come up with? Emoticons. Voice and emoticons. Think about it. That emoticons exist to try to share your expression and your body language with people. That's why it exists. But I don't know. It's hard for me to see in the back, but I will try. If I shade my eyes, I think I can. Raise your hand if you are a person who doesn't really like emoticons. Raise them up high and look around the room. Look, there's a lot of hands up in here. I don't like emoticons. But yet those of us who do like them, man, we're sending the emoticons left and right. And we can get them wrong. We can absolutely get them wrong. I mean, I know a man who was sending a very heartfelt message to a loved one, and he was using an emoticon, and he used the little emoticon that looks like a brown pyramid with eyes because he thought it was a chocolate ice cream cone. Yeah, not good, not good. So these can work, but they can also be a distractor or not do exactly what you wanted. They're not always there, on target anyway. So what I'd like to do is take you through some research. Here's my belief. I love, and by the way, yes, I'm a baby boomer. Yes, I am a techie baby boomer. I love tech. Text, I love emails. I love technology. I love all of it. But I also hopefully know its place. And what I have discovered is that virtual communication can lack social glue, that thing that adheres us to another person. We're in the people business. We're not in the technology business. We're in the people business. We're trying to learn people's stories to be relevant, just like Tony said. We're in the people business. It can lack social glue to adhere us to these people in a relationship, and it also lacks social clues. So let's take a look at some research. Albert Einstein, he is given credit for a quote that whether it was his or not, he's given credit for it. And the quote goes something like this: "I fear the day that technology will surpass human interaction because I fear we will have a generation of idiots." Now, what you need to know is that Albert Einstein died in the early 1950s. The technology he was concerned about was the telephone. Guy's got to be rolling over in his grave about now. You know, at least we have tonality on the phone. He's got to be rolling over. So again, I have become a student of this, and I encourage you to too, because this isn't Coach Jackie telling you something. This is me sharing what is now being researched around the world as a huge issue. Huge issue. Some of the research, Susan Newman, she is a wonderful social psychologist. She's authored, I think it's 13 books now. And one of her quotes that I pulled out in my reading was that email and text are safe havens for escape artists. And that's true. Sometimes it is much easier to send an email or a text because we don't have to look at the rolling eyeballs that come as a result of the message. We don't have to deal with the body language. We don't have to deal with anger. It's a great place for escape artists. At the same time, is it good to not know that they're rolling their eyeballs? Probably not, right? So, Harvard Law Review. This subjects who never spoke were not only more likely to hit an impasse, but they often felt resentful and angry about the negotiations. This was Janice Nader. She is at Northwest University. And one of the studies that she did that ended up in the Harvard Law Review, she put Northwestern students with Duke University students, and they were to negotiate for a car. And they were negotiating via email and text for the car. Well, what the group didn't know was half the group had the opportunity and were advised to get to know one another personally and then negotiate via email or text. The people who actually knew each other, got to know each other, were 4 times more likely to come to an agreement. Now, I am bowled over when I go to a class and I teach and I see one real estate professional sit there, look across the room, see a name tag, and oh my, Amy, oh my God. Oh, we did a deal together last year. Hi, I'm Jackie. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We don't know each other anymore. We do not know each other anymore. 4 times more likely to go to an agreement. Last one, Harvard Business Review. A face-to-face request is 34 times more successful than email. Now, this was Harvard research. And they went out and they were doing a funding for a good cause. They were recruiting people to fund for a good cause. And they had some people go and ask people to work with them face to face, and then some simply did it via email and text. 34 times more successful when people ask in person. Pretty amazing, right? So the question becomes, how is it that we can increase our ability to build a relationship and get negotiations to end up correct and end up the way they should, we can increase those odds by 93%. You can yell out the answer. Please let me know that you've gotten this. How can you increase it? Get face-to-face and voice-to-voice more than we are doing right now. Again, there's a time and place for email and text and instant messaging. It's great. But when it's something important, when it's something that could be misunderstood, we can do better than what we're doing. And I will tell you that with technology today, there is literally no reason whatsoever that we can't go face-to-face and voice-to-voice with people. We have FaceTime, we have Skype. I use a product called Zoom, and it's zoom.us, and it works in Canada. And zoom.us, my gosh, I mean, I pay for it because I do all of my recorded webinars that way, and I do all of my coaching that way, where we see each other. But there is a free side to that where you can have unlimited one-on-one meetings through computers and see each other. You've got tonality, you've got body language, you've got it all, and you don't have to leave the comfort of your home if you don't want to. The technology is there to allow us to be better, more effective communicators, and we're not taking advantage of it. We're locked into this text email thing. So think about that. Think about what you could do to be able to do all of this and still get your message across 100%. And I will tell you this, I have run into the people who say to me, Jackie, all I want is text, because I don't email, I don't check my voicemails, I'm busy, I don't have time, da-da-da. What I have done with that is take it to the next level, and I encourage you to do that, because I will say something on this order. So, Ray, let me ask you a question. And by the way, before I say that, I love to communicate via text. I love it. It's quick, it's efficient, it's great. But let me ask you a question. Do you trust me as a real estate professional working for you? Do you trust me? And look, that's a great question, because if he says no, we shouldn't be working together anyway. I want a yes from that person to know we should be working together. Well, of course I trust you. Good. Then Ray, text is a fabulous way for us to communicate things and get information back and forth quickly. When I feel there is something that text and or even email will not totally explain it correctly, and when you're making one of the biggest financial decisions of your life, do you trust me enough to know when we probably need to either talk on the phone or a virtual meeting or in person to discuss this so that you know you're making the right decisions for yourself? Okay, good. Now, when I get that yes from him, that's great. So when and if that occasion occurs, Ray, what I'll do is text you, tell you there's something we need to discuss, and I really want to discuss it beyond text or email, and ask you when it's convenient for you to get together. And we can do virtual or we can do in person, whatever you want to do. And I have never had anyone say no to that. So a lot of times when they tell us all we want to do is text, they don't really mean it. They don't really mean it. We just need to take it to the next level. Does it work? Well, let me share a story with you. I was in Kansas, and I was flying home on a Friday night, and I had to fly through Chicago O'Hare and catch the very last flight out of Chicago O'Hare to Cleveland, Ohio. Now, no one in their right mind goes through Chicago O'Hare on a Friday night anyway, let alone the last flight home. But you know what? I am like a little golden retriever, tie a bell around my neck, send me across the Rockies. When I'm done working, I want to get home to my husband, Rick, and my kids. That's what I want to do. So I try everything I can, and I emotionally prepare myself for the fact it may not happen. So I get to the ticket counter in the airport in Kansas, and they said, look, there's severe weather in Chicago. It's going to delay our ability to land a plane there. So you are not going to make your connection tonight. Would you like to stay in Kansas, or would you like to stay in Chicago? We'll get you as far as Chicago, but you won't get to Cleveland. I said, I'll stay in Chicago. She said, all right, that's fine. And you do know, since it's weather, it's an act of God, and it's not, and we don't cover that, a hotel bill. I said, of course. So she hands me something. She said, we do have this pink voucher. Take this, use this system, and you will get the rock bottom price on a hotel in Chicago O'Hare with a free shuttle service to and from the airport. Okay, great. That's great. So I take it, I go sit down. I see that my hotel brand happens to be on the back. So I called my hotel brand that was listed there, and I said, hey, Jackie Leavenworth, and I said, I'm a Gold Elite person and with your brand, and I need a room in Chicago O'Hare. I'm going to get stranded due to weather tonight. Do you have a room for me? Absolutely, we do, and it'll be this much money. And I said, well, I have a pink voucher here that suggests that I get the rock bottom price on a room. So what can you do for me there? She said, oh, the pink voucher. Yeah. She said, we do pink vouchers, but we can't do that with you. You'll have to call the pink voucher company. Then they call us, they reserve, and then you use that to get your, okay, fine. So I hang up and I call the pink voucher company. And, she starts with, yeah, we have a Roadway Express for $42 a night. I said, not so much. What else do you have? And then we have, a Roadway Inn and whatever. And finally, she comes back with a really nice hotel, $69 for the night with free shuttle service back and forth from the airport. Done. The lady very seriously says, now, you make sure you put the confirmation number down and you have your pink voucher, because without it, you won't get that room. Okay, fine. I tuck it in a very safe place. I go out and I get my baggage when I get to Chicago, and now it's 11:30 at night. I go get my bags, and I have 2 black suitcases on wheels, and I have a black backpack, and I have a black raincoat down to my ankles with a hood. It is raining like crazy, and I look like a hunchback ninja at 5'2". I'm like going through puddles up to my ankles, and I get to the bus stop, and the shuttle shows up within 5 minutes. I feel like a very blessed woman. I get on the bus. Bus is loaded. I am in the first seat right behind the driver. We get just to the edge of the airport when the walkie-talkie system comes on, and the manager of the hotel says, and I can hear him because I'm right behind the driver, he said, hey, you got to stop the bus, check and see if you have anyone with a pink voucher, because if you do, we don't have any more rooms for pink voucher people. He stops the bus, he stands up, he turns around, anybody with a pink voucher? No one else, just me. He said, ma'am, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to let you off here at the airport because we don't have rooms for pink voucher. I said, no, you don't understand. I have a reservation and a confirmation number. He said, you do? I said, yes, I do. He said, just a moment. He gets on his little walkie-talkie. He said, I only have one, but she has a reservation and a confirmation. And I heard the manager say, I don't care. I stood up. I held on to the pole. Braced myself. He stood up and he said, ma'am, I'm going to have to let you off. We don't have rooms for pink voucher people. And I held onto the pole and looked at him, and I looked him right in the eyes, and I said, sir, let me start with this. Number 1, I know this isn't your fault. Number 2, I'm not getting off the bus. I said, I'm not going to allow you to drop a woman traveling alone off on a dark and stormy night at midnight in Chicago on a curb. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to take me to your hotel, just like we planned, and I will speak face-to-face with your manager, and we will figure out what my options are for tonight. So he picks up the thing, and he goes, she won't get off the bus. Takes me to the hotel. He obviously, after I got off, he had called and told the manager who to look for, because there's a sea of people. There's only one guy at the ticket, David. And he looked over the sea of people. He looked at me and he just mouthed, we have a room for you. And I said, now, here's the thing. He told me they got a cancellation 2 minutes after, right? Well, they had a room, but they didn't want to let that room go. Not for $69. They wanted the $250 or $3 they could get from the sea of people who needed rooms. He could send his minion to do his dirty work. He could have even done it over the phone. Face to face, he could not. He could not send me back to Chicago O'Hare. He couldn't do it. You guys want a yes from people? You go belly to belly, eye to eye. You learn their story and listen. So please, do me a favor. Stand up for me. Stand up for me. People will give you clues. They will give you clues if we can see the clues, if we can read them. The clues are just like a traffic light: red, yellow, green. They will give you a body language clue to red body language, which means this: stop. I don't like where this is going. Show me red body language. Go ahead. Show me and your neighbors red body language. Look at you guys. Look, red body language means stop it. Now, is there also yellow body language? Yellow body language is caution. Caution. You don't necessarily need to stop, but caution. Yellow body language, I'm doubtful. Show me, show me. Oh, look, I've got this, I've got, yeah. Caution, I'm not sure I like where this is going. Now, will people show those to you? Yes. Can you see that over email? Can you see it on text? And would it be good to know if you're going the wrong direction with these people? We need to know when to shift. Houston, we got a problem. You've got to readjust. We can't see it on email. We can't see it on text. This whole conference is about change and disruption. One of the changes that has happened in our industry is that we have gone so techy that we have lost the social glue that is necessary to guide people in a process that is the largest financial transaction of their life. Now, there is a green light too, isn't there? Show me a green light. Everything's going great. Keep on going. Show me the green lights. Look at that. And folks, I want to say this to you. I appreciate the green light that you have given me, the body language you've given me, the professionalism you've given me to be a part of your wonderful conference right here in Toronto. God bless you.